Okay, good morning to the Philippine Normal University South Luzon officials and faculty members, and those who are here today. Good morning. My respect to Dean Rodrigo Abenes for inviting me to have this talk. Again, good morning. So before I'll start with my talk, maybe we can start with defining what is a grant proposal. So, in your own understanding, define what is a grant proposal. So, can we ask you to write your definitions in the chat box? Thank you very much. So, I think at this point, some of you are still writing your definition of what a grant proposal is. So, yeah, I still encourage you to write in the chat box, but I would like to start with the general definition of what a grant proposal is. So basically, it's a tell me what you want to do report. So in a grant proposal, you can see a detailed description of your team's plan intended to put into operations within a set time frame for the achievement of the aims of the study through the attainment of the set objectives or hypothesis to be tested in the research study being proposed. So it's actually a report written to a sponsor or a funding institution in solicitation of a financial support. So what I am showing you right now in this slide is my recommendation to guide you or those things that you need to do in writing a grant proposal. So these include, number one, identify a problem and think of a solution. Number two, the proposed solution should be in line with your specialization or your team's or your collaborators' expertise. Third, the draft of the proposal, if possible, should be in line with the funding agenda. Number four, you need to finalize the proposal together with your team or collaborators. Now, when you submit, make a cover letter convincing why you should be funded. Number six, if ever you receive a notification asking you to make some revisions, then revise it in accordance with reviewer suggestions and comments. Lastly, after submitting, wait for the final decisions. So let's discuss each of these guide one by one. So when you identify a problem and think of a certain solution, just be sure that you and your team will think SMART. SMART means specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bounded. So we will try to dig deeper into these later when we discuss about writing your objectives. So when you think SMART, in thinking of a problem and a solution, be sure that it is within your line of expertise or within the common interest that you share with your collaborators. Remember that your capacity as a team lead or as a member, plus your collaborators' expertise and interests, will greatly makes a difference and makes a success in writing a grant proposal. Successful modern research collaborations need to engage with interdisciplinary disciplines, access innovative approaches to problem solving, and acquire expertise beyond that which your own research groups covers. So it is also a great way to establish a worldwide network, not only worldwide, nationwide. It's also a great thing. So made up of colleagues with a variety of backgrounds, scientific, cultural, or otherwise. We need to have different disciplines. So I would like to add a little about it. So I think one of the biggest mistakes that you can make by looking for collaborators is that if you share the same enthusiasm about the same things. So if, say, people come to a laboratory and say, oh, you have an atomic force microscope. You have an extra expense machine. Oh, you have a contact angles. They might say, I did this and we do all the same. So this is the reason not to collaborate, because you have exactly the same expertise. So when the same interest but a different expertise, that's where you find the most effective collaboration. And that also be a good reason to collaborate, that we see more and more from different countries with different perspectives but sharing the same interest and passion. So in a good collaboration, people can do something that you cannot do, say, language-wise or scientifically, but don't look for people with the same expertise. Second, you share the same passion and research interest, even though you have different disciplines. Thirdly, it will be more efficient if you initiate collaboration. This will all be sustained since in every success there is trust, and so the cycle continues. So I think we need to consider the 10 simple rules for establishing international research collaboration by degrees in 2015. So remember that when you submit to international funding institutions, they prefer that the team will compose of international collaborators from different countries or universities. So rule 1, clarify why you might want to start a research collaboration. Bakit nga ba? So many international collaborations are established following chance meetings, say in scientific meetings and conferences. So in addition to pursuing quality research, the non-tangible benefits may include the development of a widening perspectives and learning about different cultural aspects. That's one. So in collaboration, you may make friends for life. That's the perks now of having a collaborator. So whom you will continue to encounter all these meetings or conferences throughout your career. Rule number 2 is to consider the characteristics your international collaborator should have or must have. So this is particularly important if cultural differences or language barrier may make communication more challenging. So maybe you can consider asking trusted colleagues whether they can provide insights as regards to your potential collaborators' reputation. Maybe you can ask them if does he maintain open communication channels? Is he or responsive? And do they usually meet important deadlines? We do not need to be very extensive to have very extensive research about your potential international collaborators here. But keep in mind, keep an open mind, being prepared to responsibly respond flexibly. So let's go to rule number 3, to consider practical approaches to establishing the relationship. So some of the most obvious opportunities for collaborations are from interactions at conferences or other meetings, either local, national, or international. So these are the most effective means of networking. Many universities run active visitors program, and this offers an ideal environment in which to meet and get to know international visitors. You may also have the opportunity to visit local or national or international universities or institutes. So if so, consider in advance to whom you would like to talk and whether you might have common interests that could potentially lead to joint research. You can also approach a potential local or national or international collaborators yourself. But keep in mind that many people are very busy, so it pays, therefore, to make your introduction interesting to your potential collaborator. Rule number four is to define the type of collaboration you want to pursue. So it is a good thing to consider at an early stage which type of collaboration you might want to pursue. So there is no single answer to this important question, since this depends on the nature of research questions. So the purpose or the scope of the study, the extent and nature of the expertise you might require, administrative regulations or restrictions of the institutions involved, preferences of funding agencies, and possibly previous experience with your potential collaborators. Consider this as your first step. Short-term, fairly straightforward pilot projects are a great and low-risk way to get to know your local, international, or national partner better, okay, and figure out whether you can work together productively and successfully. Rule number 5 is to clearly define the main goals and expected outcomes. So the golden rule in any collaborative context is to be as specific as much as possible about the project's goals during its development phase. It is important to consider the conditions for success, and you should plan to evaluate all aspects of the collaboration rigorously. Clearly define the team members' roles and responsibilities and be prepared to offer significant time commitment yourself. Fostering a high level of cooperative teamwork takes time and effort, particularly in international collaborations where cultural and language differences may prove challenging. So, developing trust, collegiality, and a sense of fairness and accountability are the basis of any successful research collaboration, irrespective of the team's geographical distribution. Number six is to be aware of the most important obstacles to establishing the relationship. So while establishing local, regional, or national collaborations may already be challenging in the Philippine setting, these difficulties might be amplified in an international context. Differing opinions and the goals of and procedures pertaining to the research project, perhaps driven by such cultural differences or caused by disagreements regarding sharing time, work, data, or resources, may inadvertently affect the research collaboration. So this particularly applies to the awarding of co-authorship or any publication resulting from collaboration, as well as proper attribution of credit for any of the team's achievements. So the most important keywords of relevance to international teamwork are transparency, openness, and careful planning. Above all, be prepared to be flexible while retaining ownership of the international collaboration. So let's discuss about rule number 7. Discuss dissemination policies as well as intellectual property rights, even at an early stage. So before disagreements may become an obstacle to the successful pursuit of the collaboration, agreement on dissemination policies of the research outcomes as well as the authorship criteria should be discussed as well, no, at an early stage. So the most important keywords in this context are trust and collegiality. So depending on the research focus and the expected outcomes, this is also the time to discuss and clarify the collaboration's policies on commercialization and intellectual property rights, especially if patents are one of the products. So establishing an effective dissemination policy requires reaching agreement on who will be authorized to speak on behalf of the collaboration, the target audience, and the nature of details of information to be shared both internally and externally. Now let's go to rule number 8. Consider and clarify the extent to which you are prepared to share your resources. So it is therefore of utmost importance to consider that you could offer your potential partner so that you will hit the ground running. So your contribution may include funding or personnel or data or analysis tools or access to specified equipment that you have in your organization or novel ideas. So however, do not be disappointed if your request is turned down. So there are numerous reasons why a potential collaborator may not be able to share their resources. So including a need to protect preliminary work from criticism, claims related to discovery and intellectual property issues, local investments, or any confidential information. So let's discuss the last two rules. Let's start with rule number 9. So avoid conflicts of interest. So your most important consideration should be to protect your reputation, of course, no? And your research integrity. So full disclosure of any potential conflicts of interest is recommended to funding agencies, in your institutions, collaborators, of course, as well as to journal editors. So avoid the appearance of biases, which may occur if such conflicts of interest come to the surface at a later stage. This could compromise the credibility of your study, even if nothing untoward happened. So one of the most worst scenario is you could face claims of professional misconduct, and in some extreme cases, your papers may be retracted. Or collaborators and funding institution. The next step is to start writing. So start it by identifying the aim of the study. So you need to state your aim very specific. What do you want to achieve as an immediate result? What is the filling of your research gap? The aim should be related to the immediate result or output of the project. Later, the title of your research proposal contains the aim of the study. So the output or your deliverables after the study. So they must be extremely precise and detailed. Be specific means that you have to prepare yourself for in-depth research about the issue you want to address. Avoid general statements such as this project will improve the employability of young people. Rather, write what specific context of the project is. For instance, be specific about what strategies have been already implemented and can be implemented in your study. It is a good practice to list all your objectives and some aims, even more specific. So the aim will be achieved through the following objectives, or we call them sub-aims. So these objectives of the proposal should be to convince the sponsor of the value of your idea and to assure him that your organization has the capability, the manpower and facilities to deliver the expected results. So we just stated previously that it should be specific. Next is that it should be measurable. So your objective must be measurable. Keep in mind that your donor wants to know how the success of your project can be evaluated. Therefore, your objectives must enable the donor to monitor the progress of the project and assess the final results. So following up the previous example, state how many young people will be participating in the project, how many will be trained, how many will be likely to find a job within the end of the year, within 6 months or within a year. Next, it should be achievable. So it should be within the duration of the project. So your objective must be achievable and relevant. So research your community and make sure you know whether your project is likely to be welcomed or whether it is needed. Set achievable targets. Do not claim that a year-long project will produce radical change. Rather, set clear objectives that can be fulfilled. Remember that the success of the project will also determine your chances of obtaining more funding. Thus, each project as a small contribution towards bigger ends. Meaning to say, these objectives should contribute for the attainment of the aims. Next, it should be relevant. Relevance means result-oriented. So your project objective should be able to answer the questions like, why should this project be done? What impact will this project have? You have to set objectives parallel to your organization's strategic plan and mission, addressing the specific needs of your target group. Of course, it should also be time-bounded. So this is an example of a format in writing your objectives. So you will determine how many objectives you will have. So as you can see, you have objective 1, for example. You have to write also the result of the objective 1. And then you need to describe the different tasks that has something to do with the attainment of that objective. Okay? And then you have the time frame. It should be time bounded. Remember, your objectives must be reached in a set time frame. Okay? So draw on the results of similar projects, and observe what is happening in your community in order to decide how long it takes to complete a task. Now, take note of other events that might become an obstacle of your reaching your goals on time. So, for objective 1, for objective 3, you should have to write everything. The results of the objective, descriptions for task 1 of this kind of objective or different tasks, and of course the time frame. So more specifically, your objectives will have this kind of template. So you'll have a Gantt chart according to objectives, you have the results of the objectives, you have the task descriptions, you have the specific time frame, and the personnel involved and resources needed. Remember that all of these objectives helps in the attainment of that goal, the main goal, which is the aim of the study, which is the output after the conduct of the study. Then again, in writing your objectives, you need to think smart. Your objectives should be specific, they should be measurable, they should be achievable, they should be relevant, and they should be time-bounded. I would like to show you a certain template for in writing your financial plan. So as you can see, this is very specific, right? So there are like four different parts in the financial plan. For the first two, we have personal services, we have maintenance and other operating expenses or MOOE. For example, you have 16 months to finish your research. So you have to be very specific in your financial plan. You have to write how much you're going to spend for each of the months, and then you write the subtotal. So these different parts of the financial plan is not exhaustive. It depends upon the funding institution. So I'm just presenting you the general ones. So we have the third part, which is the equipment outlay, and then we have the administrative costs. And then all you have to do is to write the specific amount per month that you think you will be needing, no, in your research. Okay, let me show you an example of that budget breakdown. This is an example of the one that we submitted in the Korean Embassy, which is under the Korean Studies Grant. This is actually led by Dr. Inero Ancho. So this is how it looks like, okay? So you have the total budget, you have the grant amount, and then there are research activities expense or personal services. So this is also an example of our financial plan that was approved by CHED RECPE. So this is also one of the templates that we were required to fill in vis-a-vis our financial plan. So in this slide, you can see it's a project Gantt chart. So sometimes you call it work plan. So depending on the funding institution, so whatever the template they will be requiring you. So all of this actually has something to do with the aims and objectives. So you're writing your aims and objectives in a very specific manner is very easy to those can be transferred in any templates that is required to you. So if you write it in a very specific manner and very clearly, so that it will be easy, in any templates that is required by the funding institution. Now, to sum up, in order for you to draft the proposal, it is really possible that you will be writing your proposal in line with the funding institution's agenda. So, in order for you to write a winning proposal, so the researcher must align their interest with those of the sponsoring organization. Alignment is the core secret to success in this area. So the researchers must demonstrate that they know what they are seeking and how they will recognize it and explain why the search is worthwhile. So the proposal must indicate the magnitude of the expected gain, which is actually the output or the aim of the study from doing the proposal work. So as I've told you, the format or the template in writing a proposal depends on the sponsoring funding agency. And they will provide all the templates, so don't worry about it. So different agencies have different templates. So maybe you can visit the websites of like the United Nations Development Program, you have the UNESCO, World Bank, or the UST. We have the PSHRD, NRCP, PC, HRD, and some more. So I think this is very timely because as of now, you can see a lot of calls for proposals. So kindly visit the different websites for each of these funding institutions. So maybe you can choose which of the funding agency will you be submitting your grant proposal. So this is the website of UNDP. So there's a lot of things that you can read there, and all you have to do is to maybe type in the Google, and then write UNDP. So this is also the website of UNESCO. So there's a lot of areas or topics wherein they really supports some researches, especially in developing countries like Philippines. So this is also the website of World Bank. So wherein you can find a lot of topics there, where you can fit in with their agenda. So all you have to do is try to browse through this website and find for yourself which of the topics will fit your aims and objectives. So this is also the website of DOST PSHERD. So I think you have heard a lot about PSHERD, and I think some of you here are already grantees of some of the research fundings from PSHERD. So it's you are very fortunate right now because there is a call for proposal. So all you have to do is to visit DOST PSHERD and try to find out which of the funding area will you fit your proposal. And for those who are members of the National Research Council of the Philippines, this is also a DUST funding giving agency which funds basic research. I think they are also having a call right now. So they have also the deadline to follow. So kindly visit the website of DUST and RCP. So this is also one of the famous research institution in the Philippines. We have the DOST, Philippine Council for Health Researches and Development, especially in the pandemic. So they are actually funding some research proposals which has something to do with vaccines involving the pandemic and some virology studies and studies that has something to do with health research and development. So now that you have chosen your funding agency, you may have something in mind already. You are now ready to complete the writing phase. So there are general components in the proposal, grant proposal. So a research proposal meant for any award or a grant, local or international, may have the following components. So you should have, after making or developing your aims and objectives, this time I think you are ready to write your research title. Also, you need to get the CVs and the profile of your team. So you are required to write the applicants' names and affiliation and profile of the team. Of course, you need to have the executive summary of the project. Sometimes some of the funding institution requires this, but sometimes they just require preface, synopsis, or abstract. And I think almost all of the funding institution needs good introduction. So the introduction should contain the background, the statement of the problem, the purpose of carrying out the research questions and hypotheses, and a review of relevant literatures and references. So all of these should be in a package. Also included is the method. The method should contain the study area or the local, the research design, sample size and sampling procedure, instruments for data collection, procedures and analysis of data, and of course the ethical consideration and the expected results. Together with the package that you will be submitting in your funding institution, if of course they will really require you to have a Gantt chart or a work plan, and of course the financial plan or budget. Okay, so in the financial plan, you have to be very sure that it's very specific, it's practical, and of course logical. Okay, and then you need to also include the CVs of your team members as well as you as a team leader. Now, after you have initially drafted a proposal, I think it would be better if you finalize the proposal together with your team. So it has been proven by Scopus in their tool analysis that international collaborations are cited much better than the local collaboration or collaboration within a university and for quality research. So in this pandemic, meeting people in person is not yet possible. So you can actually try to do the finalization working together with your team through virtual conferences or other social media. So these are just tools that we can use to set up multidisciplinary collaboration in a certain multidisciplinary subject area and see which people are working in these areas. Okay? Now, maybe you can make it formal, okay? And be responsible, have a division of responsibility, and follow the schedules. I think collaboration is very important. You never work in isolation on one topic, especially in finalizing the proposal. You will always work with other people. So working on somehow related topics, trying to set up collaborations. Now, after submitting your first draft of the proposal, you'll be very lucky if you will be notified, no, to revise the proposal. So, in that case, that's actually 50-50 opportunity that you will be accepted. But if you done rightfully, revise it in accordance with the reviewer's suggestion and comments, and do it with your team, I think you are almost there. And then after that, uh, you just wait until they will have further revisions. Some of the funding institutions will give you two chances to revise or three. So depending on the funding agency. So after you have submitted the proposal with some revisions integrating the comments and suggestions of the reviewers or assessors, all you have to do is to wait and chill. Whether your team's proposal will be accepted or not, you are still a winner because you were shortlisted or because you have tried submitting. So, well, if your proposal will be accepted, then that calls for a celebration. But if not, it's still okay. You're still a winner because you did it. It might be that your proposal can still be submitted somewhere in line with our research agenda in another research funding institutions. In that case, you may think of revising it to align with other agency or funding agency. Or maybe you can think for another topic. Okay? As you can see in this slide, there are a lot of possible topics for research proposals. So I'm showing you that there is really interdependencies of research and society. So from you as a researcher, you are actually connected to the government for whatever R&D support or tools and insights. So or policies, and you're also can find a lot of research topics with the general public as well as the industry. So all you have to do is to think twice, discuss it with your team, um, and think about some noble solutions, something that is practical, something that is contextualized within your community. And I think with that, in that case, you can think about a very nice aim of your grant proposal. For the UST, I actually this is from them about learning and redesigning R&D activities. So there are some of the social science research because education is actually in the social science research. So maybe you can find some of the emerging themes that the UST is funding right now. So they are also funding some startup research grant programs. So I think the PNU South Luzon is into this. So I think you can just visit some of the websites of the UST, especially in Pursuit. Maybe you can be directed to some of the startup research grants program offered by the UST. So with that, I think this is my last slide. So I just hope that you have learned something, and that I did not waste your time. And I would like again to thank you for this opportunity for me to share about writing international proposal. Thank you very much, and God bless us all.